Remember to talk into the mic while you're doing
Right. I'm good at that, don't worry. That's all right with the content. Oh, wow.
it. Test.
Cool, that works. Just let me know when you're ready.
I gotta send my brother this link actually.
Are you okay with just showing everyone this?
Whatever.
Your personal
It's all gravy.
communications. Am I doing the whole spiel right now too about prerequisites and all that jazz?
Yes, everything. Like
Okay.
all the stuff we covered like right before people were starting to eat, and after that, let's go ahead and like sit down and have some pizza.
Okay.
Oh my God, please stop. Here we are.
All right.
Um, yeah, go ahead and give your little spiel.
All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Hack Night. So, if you can see on the screen right now, there is a bit.ly link that you should go to sign in. So, please do that within the next 15 minutes. And we have pizza down there. Please limit yourself to 2 slices per person for the time being. And next 15 minutes, if you can make sure you have all of our prerequisite programs downloaded. So, make sure you have Sublime Text. Sublime Text is a text editor that we'll be using for this hack night. If you have another text editor that you are already comfortable with using from prior experience, you can go ahead and use that. But for tonight, we'll be using Sublime Text, and you can just find that by Googling it and downloading it, the appropriate program. And also make sure that you have a GitHub account. So sign up for that within the next 15 minutes, and we'll get started shortly.
Hello, everyone. Can y'all hear me? Everyone good? Right? In the back? Okay. In case you didn't hear what Kevin said earlier, we're going to get started in about like 5-10-ish minutes or so. So please have some pizza and make sure you have a text editor installed. Sublime Text works particularly well. And a GitHub account as well. If you have any questions about how to do either of those two things, I'm right up here. Kevin's here, so just raise your hand and we can come up to you. Oh, and we will also have some mentors available as well. I guess we can introduce them when we introduce ourselves as well, so just hold off. If you haven't already, please also do sign in at this link. We'd really appreciate it. Helps us get food. In case you're wondering what we're gonna make, the final thing is gonna look kind of like this. So, it's like a personal website, right? So the idea is you'd want to, showcase some of your skills, accomplishments, things like that. Or honestly, you can put whatever you want on there realistically. But for like software development jobs, we generally want something like this. See, I got some skills down here, got some projects, and one other cool thing this thing does is if you click on the headshot, it'll change the color of the background like to random color. So we're gonna learn how to do all that in the span of hour and a half, maybe 2 hours if it lags. But yeah. Is there anyone who's having trouble installing the text editor, grabbing the GitHub account? We all set?
We good to go? All right, sounds good. All right, we're gonna get started. So again, thank you everybody for coming out tonight to this week's Hack Night. So some brief introductions. My name is Kevin. I'm a sophomore studying computer science, and I'm part of the Institute of Electrical or Electronics Engineers, aka IEEE at Northwestern, and I'm here with my friend Chris.
Yes, hi everyone. My name is Chris. I am a senior studying computer science, and I'm also with IEEE. We also have some wonderful mentors in the audience today from both Hack and WIC as well. So could those mentors please raise your hand if you're available for today? A little higher, please. Great. So yeah, if you all have any questions at any point in time, wonderful. Just raise your hand and one of them will come to assist you. We're hoping that all of you will be able to stick through to the very end this time around. So hopefully, you'll have a website that looks kind of like this one by the very end.
Yes. So as Chris mentioned, this is the personal website, kind of what's going to look like at the end, what we're going to shoot for. And as Chris mentioned, what exactly is the point of a personal website? So it kind of showcases your skills and your experience, and everyone has easy access to the internet nowadays, so it's very accessible. It's an easy way of showing people who you are, what you do, that kind of stuff. So yes. Yeah. So creating a website like that depends on 3 primary web technologies. So let me just get set up over here. One second. See if that works. We good? Awesome. All right. Wow, that's big. Okay. So, as I mentioned, 3 primary web technologies, HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, and we're going to go over what those are throughout tonight. And let me scroll down just a little bit. So we're going to start from the very basics with HTML. I'm going to go over that, and then Chris will take you on to learn CSS to make sure the website looks a little bit nicer, and we'll end off the night with some JavaScript to spice up a little bit. Feel free to stop us with any questions you may have throughout the night. As before, we have plenty of mentors amongst you guys who can also help. So please just let us know, and we'll be happy to help. So we're going to start. So first of all, I want you to make a directory or a new folder. I don't know if it's kind of small, but
mirror your display.
yes. Thank you, Chris. There we go. That's a bit bigger. So I'm going to make a new folder. Make it wherever you want on your computer. It's helpful to name it something like, personal. Put this down for a second. Like personal site, like this. Doesn't matter what you call it, just make sure you know where it is. So, and if you've already installed Sublime Text or whatever text editor, I'll go ahead and do that right now. So in Sublime Text, I'm going to go ahead and open, and you want to make sure to open the entire folder. So I'm going to go ahead and find that real quick. Let's see. All right, so there we go, personal site. So I'm going to open it, and voila, here we go. So right now, there's nothing in our folder right now. That's okay. We're going to make something very soon. So, all right. So we're going to first start off with some HTML. So what is HTML? Yes.
This is fine for everyone, right? You've been able to open up Sublime Text? Yeah? Open up the directory? Great. Yeah, just always remember
All right, so we're going to start off with some good old HTML. So what does HTML stand for? It stands for Hypertext Markup Language, and basically defines like the structure of like how a web page is. HTML is made up of like elements that kind of decide what the different pieces of content you have on your page. So it can be headings, paragraphs, images, links. There's a lot of variety of content that you can show on your web page. So to start off, we're gonna make sure to include this tag at the beginning of our HTML document. So I'm gonna type out. So make sure you have an opening less than sign or angle bracket. It's on the bottom of your keyboard. Exclamation point, doc type, HTML, and then I'm gonna make a greater than sign. Is that size okay for everyone? Should I make it bigger? A little bigger? Yeah, of course. We'll make it this big for now. I might have to make it smaller later because there's gonna be more on this, but I think this should be good enough. So we're gonna start off with this, and I'm gonna go ahead and save this actually. So make sure you go back to your folder, where your personal site folder. So mine is, where is it? Here it is. Okay. So when you save it, make sure that your the name of the file is going to be index and then .html. So it's important that we have this .html at the end, otherwise it won't recognize the file as an HTML file. And we're naming it index because that's just naming convention. This is the landing page or the home page of our eventual website. We're going to call it index.html. So if we save it, you notice that doc type actually changed colors. So the nice thing about Sublime, or most text editors that you guys might be familiar with using, is that it highlights important words within the document. It makes it easier for us to write our code. So if you've gotten to this point and the text has changed color and you have a saved file called index.html, we're good up to this point. Is anyone having issues with that so far? So all we've done so far is make a new file called index.html, and we have this typed in at the very beginning, and that's it. Okay, if everyone's good. Now you may be wondering what this is. So back in the day when HTML was an up-and-coming technology, there are many versions of HTML, and this at the beginning here just denotes that we're using HTML5, which is the latest version of HTML. You don't have to worry too much about what that means. You just have to know that our HTML documents need this at the beginning. So now I'm going to introduce the concept of what an element is. So remember, as I said earlier, an HTML document is composed of several elements. So an element has an opening tag and a closing tag. Tags have opening and closing angle brackets. So by angle brackets, I mean these less than and greater than signs. And the ending tag has a slash. So we're going to introduce our first element here with the HTML element. So I'm going to make sure I have an opening angle bracket. I'm going to type in HTML. So it actually pops up here, which is quite helpful. And then I have a closing angle bracket. And this is our opening tag for our element right here. So we're going to need a closing tag. So I'm going to go ahead and have an opening or angle bracket slash. And if you have Sublime, actually, it'll autocomplete for you, which is quite nice. But just make sure that you have this entire closing tag. So you notice this is also HTML in the middle. And then we have a closing angle bracket. So this is our opening tag. This is our closing tag, and that's our first element. So make sure you save. And this is required in every HTML document as well. It encompasses the entire HTML document. So if everyone's okay with that so far, I'm going to keep going. All right, cool. So we're going to keep introducing more elements that the HTML document needs. And next one's going to be body. So this is going to be the body tag. And this is where, so first I'm going to have a opening angle bracket, body, close that, and then make sure it's a closing tag. So this body element, all the content that we want to visually show on the page, on our web page, is going to be in between this opening tag and this closing tag within the body element. So let's get started and start showing things because we don't have anything to see right now, right? So I'm going to introduce another element. This one is going to be called H1. So remember, we need an opening tag called H1. And the H in H1 stands for heading. So for our personal website, I'm just gonna say what my name is. I'm gonna say like, hi. Yes, I can. Thank you. So for the heading, I'm just gonna say, I'm gonna introduce myself. I'm gonna say, hi, my name is Kevin Lee. And then make sure it has a closing tag. And that is our heading. So we want to see what that looks like, right? So I'm going to go ahead and save this. We can cancel that. Go ahead and save this. Now I'm going to go back. I'm going to go back really quickly to our folder. So wherever you saved your folder. And you notice we now have a file in that folder. So I'm going to go ahead and right click it, open with, and then you can use whatever browser you want. I'm going to use Chrome. It's up to you really, whether you use Firefox or Edge or Opera. I don't know what other browsers there are, but if you open in Chrome, you should see this. You should see text that looks kind of big, and it should say the text that you put in between. So I'm going to go back to the text editor. It should be the text that is within here. So if you see something, congratulations, you have your first website at its very simplest form. So is anybody not seeing anything on your screen or didn't get to that part and has any questions? All right, cool. So just to reiterate, this is what we see right now, or should be seeing. And you may be wondering why it is called H1. So there's actually 6 different versions of the heading tag, 1 through 6. And it goes from greatest to smallest in terms of size. So I'm going to actually show you right now really quickly. So I'm going to have an H3. Call it, I'm going to just say this is a smaller heading. Make sure I close it. And an H6. This is the smallest heading. So make sure every time you make a change that you're saving your file. Otherwise, this isn't going to automatically like refresh. So make sure this file is saved. I'm going to go ahead and refresh this page, and you can see that these consecutive headings are smaller. So I'm going to go ahead and get rid of these for now because we don't want them. And I think we're going to go ahead and move on to another part of the HTML document. Another important part that every HTML document needs, and it's going to be called the head tag, or it stands for heading. Okay, so the head tag is actually going to go, so it's going to be within our HTML element, but it's going to be between, or it's going to be before body. So I'm going to stick it right here. So remember, make sure to have our opening tag and our closing tag right here. So the point of the heading tag is to show show information about our website. We call it metadata. And there's actually a lot of things you could put here. But for the purposes of tonight, all we're going to do is actually put in a title. So I'm going to go back really quickly to our website. And you notice here at the top, that at the tab it's called index.html, which is what our file is called. Now, if you notice, like we go to some website like Google, at the tab it says called Google, right? It's not like a file name, or like go to Wikipedia, it says Wikipedia. So we want to have like something here that's not just our file name. It's not just index.html. And we can change that by actually putting in a title tag within the head element. So I'm going to go ahead and put in title. And because this is a personal website, I'm just going to put my name. You can put whatever you want, really. And make sure I close it. Okay, so this is where we're at right now. I'm going to go ahead and save it. Go back, and if I refresh this, I should see that it says my name right there, which is cool. It's a lot better than before. So we're going to do more things with the heading tag later, as Chris will show you. But for now, this is about it. So does anyone have any questions so far? All right, cool. So right now we have a heading. I'm going to start putting in some content. So I'm going to put in like a little blurb, something short to introduce myself. So I'm going to introduce a new tag called the P tag. And P stands for paragraph. So I'm going to start that off. And I'm going to say something real short. I'll say I'm a second year undergraduate student studying computer science at Northwestern University. Short and sweet. Make sure I close that. I'm going to go ahead and save it. I'm going to go back. And there we go. So this text is not bolded, it's not big like the heading. It's just a normal paragraph. So this is where we should be at right now. Now let's say I wanted to include like links in my website. Let's say I wanted people who visited my website to be able to click on Northwestern University, and it will take them to the Northwestern website so they can learn more about, our school. So I should be able to click on this text, and it should take them to the Northwestern website. So now I'm going to introduce what we call an A tag. So A stands for anchor, and it's what we use for links. So we want to make sure that Northwestern University is the thing you have to click on. So I'm going to actually start off the A tag here and end it here. Now the A tag is different from the tags we've shown so far. Now we have to be able to tell like what the link is, right? Where we want to go when we click on this link. So elements in HTML can have attributes or properties. And in this case, we're going to include the attribute. It's called href. And href is basically the link that we want this link to go to. So I'm going to type. So the format of that is I'm going to type in href right here. And you have to make sure it goes inside the opening tag here. And it auto-completed for me, but basically you need the attribute. You want an equal sign, and then quotation marks, and then the value in between. So in this case, we want to go to northwestern.edu, right? So just to give you a quick show of what that is, we want to be able to go here, right? So I'm going to go ahead and copy this link. And make sure that you include the HTTPS : / at the beginning. That's important. Otherwise, it will try to navigate to somewhere else in your directory, and then that's not going to work. So I'm going to go back. I'm going to stick it right there in the quotation marks. And there we go. So just to reiterate, we have our opening tag for our A tag here, our A element here. And it has an attribute called href for equal sign, and then we have our link that we want to go to. And then make sure you close it here. So if I save this and I go back, let me refresh, and it already looks different. Looks like a link. So if I click on it, it should take me to northwestern.edu, which it does. Awesome. Does anyone have any questions or having issues up to this point? All right, cool. So now you may be wondering, how many attributes does an A tag have, or how many attributes are there for all of the HTML tags out there? So there's actually a really nice resource, and the reason why I'm asking this is right now when we click on Northwestern University, it loads in the same tab, right? Which is a little annoying. It takes the person away from our website. Ideally, we want them to stay on our website. So I want to figure out a way of making sure that this tab, when I click on it, opens a new tab as opposed to replacing my website here in the window. So there must be an attribute for that. So we can actually look this up. So there's a lot of good resources on the internet. I'm just going to go ahead and type in A tag HTML. And I'm just going to go into W3 Schools. So W3 Schools is a pretty good resource for looking up HTML attributes and CSS, as we'll cover later. But we get to this page and shows us like an example of how to use it, like some definitions, a lot of helpful tips, and then it shows us a list of attributes actually. So you can kind of like look through this and see what each thing does. And I know from experience that what we want actually is going to be the target attribute. So the target attribute, what it does is it specifies where to open the linked document. So if I click on this really quickly, and these are different values this attribute could have, and underscore blank says opens a linked document in a new window or tab. That sounds exactly what we need. So I'm gonna go back really quickly. Right now our A tag has one attribute, which is the href. If you want another attribute, all I'm gonna do is space and then do the exact same format. So the attribute was target, right? So I'm gonna type in target, hit the equal sign, have our quotation marks, and in here the value, as we remember, should be underscore blank. So right now our A element has two attributes. One that shows where it's going, like the link, and one that says, hey, open this in a new tab as opposed to replacing the tab we're on. So if I go ahead and save this, I'm gonna go back really quickly. I'm gonna refresh. If I click on this, it actually opens a new tab. Fantastic. So there are a lot of unique attributes for each element that we're not even gonna come close to covering today. But the resources are out there for if you want to do more advanced things with your website. So that's the A tags or our link. Anybody have any questions up to this point? All right, cool. I think we're gonna move on. So actually, before we move on, so what I'm gonna ask you guys to do, actually, I'm gonna give you some time. I want you guys to add some of your own links for a website you're working on right now. So because this is a personal website, some things that I would consider putting on it would be, a LinkedIn, maybe, maybe your Twitter, if you're active on Twitter, other DeviantArt, I don't know, whatever social media platforms you want to be known for. So go ahead and do that. We'll give you a couple minutes. And if you need any help, just let us know. But go ahead and stick a few in there.
Yeah, just like put it right under this paragraph tag that we made. It's going to be important for when we style stuff. Just like 3 or 4 links will be fine. Don't overdo it.
Yeah, I'll be doing it right up here if you need some guidance as well. Oh, it's getting kind of big. I don't even know what I want to put in here. Do I have a Twitter? I think I do. I mean, we're not gonna click on the link, so it doesn't really matter. I don't really care.
Should be good.
Yeah. Okay.
Does anyone have any questions? Anything?
So I went ahead and put up three links for me. I put up a LinkedIn, a GitHub, because I'm a CS student. You might not have a GitHub account if you're not studying CS. That's perfectly fine. Whatever's relevant to you works. And I also put my Twitter. I think that's my Twitter link. I'm not really sure. Doesn't really matter. I'm not going to be clicking on it anyways. So if I go back to, let me just get rid of these real quickly. I have a few links here. And if you are good to go, I'm gonna go ahead and move on. All right, so we have our heading here. We have a little blurb, intro blurb here, a couple links to some of our social media platforms. So I kind of want to put an image here, kind of show my face on, on my personal website. So that is also an element. And the image element is actually a little unique in that it doesn't need a closing tag. So it's an exception to the rule. So I'm gonna go ahead and type in, this one's gonna be IMG for image. Now, earlier we mentioned that the anchor tag, we have two attributes, right? For this image, we're actually going to tackle 3 attributes. So they're going to be src for source. So first one's going to be src for source. So this is just going to be the image that we want to show. And we actually have 2 options for how we want to show this image. The first way I'm going to show you is through a image that's hosted on the internet. So remember, we're going to have our attribute, have the equal sign, and then quotation marks. And I've already prepared a little Google search for a person. I'm just going to pull some random image off the internet. So let's choose this guy. Gonna make sure to open image in new tab, because what we want is this URL right here of this man, I guess. So you can choose whatever image you want, or whatever, like you can just look up an image on Google Images. As long as you're on like something like this where it's only showing the image and not like the website like this. So you can just like do open image in new tab and it should get you something like this. So I'm gonna go ahead and copy this link really quickly, and I'm gonna stick it right in here. It's a pretty long link, and I'm just gonna do that, and we don't need a closing tag actually. So if I save this, it should show the image on my website. So let's see how it goes. I'll go back here. I'm gonna go ahead and refresh, and ooh, well, we got the image. We got the image, but it's way too big, like way too big. So we're gonna have to adjust the size, right? So to make sure this isn't such a, yeah, this is way too big. So our second attribute for image is actually gonna be height. So there's actually a lot of ways of adjusting your image. You can look them up in your own time. For the purposes of this, we're just gonna do a height. It's a really simple way of changing the size of your image. And height, as you might have guessed, just denotes the height of the image. So remember, we have height equals sign, and then I'm gonna just do 200 px, and px stands for pixels. So that's a unit that we can use for height in this case. So I'm gonna go ahead and save this. I'm gonna go ahead and refresh this. Hopefully it's a better size now. And oh, that's much better. There we go. This isn't too bad at all. All right. So if anybody has any questions, just let us know. If your image is still too big, any issues like that. If not, I'm gonna keep going, and I'm gonna yes. Yes, I will definitely slow down. Thank you for that. All right. So we got into a point where we're showing an image off the internet, and we've currently resized it so that it's smaller. So our third attribute for this image is going to be alt, A-L-T. And I'll explain what that is in just a minute. Plus me alt. And basically what this attribute does is, let's say your user is having internet issues. They're having connectivity issues, or their internet's going crazy, and they're trying to load into your website, and it just doesn't load all the resources for whatever reason. Or let's say the website, the host of the website is having like server issues. In whatever case, they're not getting everything on their computer when they try to go to your website. So what the alt attribute does is it shows a placeholder for in the case that your image does not load. So for our alt, I'm just gonna say a picture of me. And this is for accessibility issues. We wanna be able to tell people, hey, there's supposed to be an image here, even if like you don't see the image. And if I save this, nothing's gonna change actually, because our image is still here. Everything's loading properly. I'm going to go ahead and simulate like what it's like for the image to not load properly. And I'm just gonna go ahead and get rid of the source really quickly. So source is nothing. So right now it is loading no image. So I'll go ahead and refresh. And it replaces the image with this little icon, and it says picture of me. So it's telling me, hey, there should be something here, but there's not. I'm just gonna tell you what it is, and it's a picture of me. And that is the alt attribute. Any questions? Is this pace okay? Everything good? All right, sweet. Okay. So I'm gonna go back here actually. Go ahead and put that back in there. All right, he's back. Now I'm gonna go ahead and I want a picture of myself, right? Not this random guy. So earlier I mentioned there's two ways of showing an image, right? And this is just getting the image off the internet. The second way actually is having the image in the folder of your website and just referencing it from there. So I'm gonna go ahead and go back, and this is our personal site folder, right? And it still has only index.html. Turns out I have a nice little LinkedIn picture I have on handy, so I'm gonna go ahead and get this. You can use whatever picture of yourself you have on your own computer. I hope you have one. If not, then I'm sorry, but you can just use any image for purposes of this. I'm gonna go ahead and copy this. I'm gonna go ahead and paste it here. So right now, I'm gonna call it LinkedIn. This is inside my folder, the personal site folder. So if I go back to my text editor, in the left here, you can actually see the image has been added to our little list of files on the personal site. If you don't see it, then it means that you have not moved the file into the correct place. So make sure that everything is in your personal site folder. So in order to reference this, so this is a JPEG image, so it has a .jpg ending. Your image could be a PNG, could be whatever else image format. You just have to make sure you include that at the end. So what I mean by that is I'm going to replace the source actually. Going to get rid of that, and I'm going to replace it with the file name. So in my case, the file name is linkedin.jpg. Whatever image you have, it's going to be different. So based off of what it's called, the file name. So mine is called linkedin.jpg. So if I did this correctly, it should replace the image with an image of myself. Go ahead and refresh, and there we go. That's me. That's me. So does anybody have any questions about that? Is anybody having trouble getting their image to be shown and moving their image into their own website directory? I'll give you a couple seconds to look and see if it's going right.
Yes, question.
Right. Yes, that's correct. So I'm gonna go back actually. So right now this is the folder I'm in, the personal site folder. You can just drag your image into that folder. So mine's just right here. Awesome. Anybody else have any questions or issues? Sweet. All right. If not, then I'm going to go ahead and continue. So actually we're going to do some cleaning up with our directory structure. So right now we just have these two files here. We have index.html and we have our LinkedIn picture, or what for me is the LinkedIn picture. Now there's a certain structure we should be following, a convention we should be following when organizing the folder of our website. So one convention is to have a folder. We'll make a new folder. I'm going to call it image, img. And the convention is to keep all of our images of our website in this folder. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that really quickly. I'm going to drag LinkedIn into here, and now it's in this folder. And if you go back to your text editor, you should see that you have this new folder. You can open it up and see that LinkedIn is in there. Now, I'm going to go ahead and refresh my page actually, and it looks like my image has been lost. It's not showing up, even though I didn't change any of the code. Now, why would that be? So, turns out, in this source attribute, we have to make sure that we're accessing the correct folders. So let me explain that. This can get a little confusing. This was very confusing for me when I first started learning about this. So in this source attribute, we're currently looking for a file called linkedin.jpg. linkedin.jpg. So I'm just going to go ahead and go back to my folder to give you a better visual sense. This is the folder we're at right now. So like this is, we can say this is like the base level of our folder or our directory. Now, right now, we're looking for a file that is called linkedin.jpg. Do you see that file here? Answer should be no, because it's not, you can't see it here. And it's right now it's in our image folder. But our code doesn't know that. Our code is just looking for a file that's called linkedin.jpg within this space, and it's not finding anything. So how do we fix this? What we want our source attribute to do is to go into this image folder and then look for the LinkedIn image. So how do we do that? We're going to go back. This is what our code is right now, right? So we want to go into the folder first. So the folder in this case called img, right? I'm going to type in img, and I'm going to try to type slash like this. So the slash indicates that we have gone into a folder. So at this point, what this is saying is we're looking for something in the image folder up to this point in the image folder. And if we look at this entirely, what this is saying is we are looking for a file called linkedin.jpg in the image folder. So if I save this, I go back to our web page, it works again. It has successfully found the file. And that is the basics of how the folder hierarchy works within our website folder. Now that's a little, I know that's a little confusing. Does anyone have any questions or having any issues right now with that? Okay, in that case, we're gonna go ahead and move on. So right now we have our heading, we have a nice image of ourselves, have a little introductory blurb, and we have some links. So I want to add some more content. I'm gonna add, let's say I want to talk about my skills, what I'm good at. So I'm gonna go ahead and add some more content here. I'm gonna go ahead and make a H2. So the heading's not as big as our first one. I'm gonna call it skills. And let's say I put in a paragraph and I say, these are some things that I am good at. I encourage you to use better language, something a little bit more professional, but that's just a placeholder for now. So if I save this, we have another little heading here called skills and a little blurb here down here. Now I want to list off my skills. So I'm going to introduce a new element to you guys. It's going to be called UL, stands for unordered list. So how the UL tag works is, let's say I have UL here, and if I close it, this is our UL element, our unordered list. For each item in our list, that's going to be another element called li. And li stands for list item. So one list item, I'm going to say it's HTML. That's one of our new skills. I'm going to keep adding a couple more. I'm going to say CSS. And then the final one, JavaScript. So all of you should be able to write these down on your personal website by the end of tonight, hopefully. So to recap, this is our UL element. And within the UL element, we have multiple LI elements for each bullet point. So UL standing for unordered list and LI standing for list item. So if I save this really quickly, I'm going to go back, I'm going to refresh, and there we go. We have some nice bullet points. Now, does anyone have any questions about the unordered list and list items? If not, then I will keep going. So one thing we can do actually is similar to the unordered list. What if we wanted our list to be numbered? So right now it's bullet points, right? So what if we want it to be numbered? So I'm going to go ahead and change the U to an O, And this is our OL element, actually, the ordered list. And make sure you also change your closing tag. So if I save this, we have numbers. Fantastic. So you have that option. You can either have a UL element with unordered list, which is bullet points, or you can have an OL, which is an ordered list with numbers. In this case, I'm just going to keep it UL unordered because I like bullet points more. It's up to you. You can do whatever you want. It's your website after all. So I'm going to keep it UL. So if I refresh, we have bullet points here. All right. So now we have here some elements. We have a heading. We have a little paragraph, and we have some bullet points here, right? I think it's fair to say that all of these are logically connected, right? Like these all make sense to be together. You can almost call it a section. So this will now introduce our first semantic HTML tag. Now earlier at the very beginning I mentioned that HTML is for the structure of web pages. So the purpose of every element is to be as descriptive as possible about what it is that you're trying to show. So that's where we come from when we say we want a semantic HTML element. It kind of describes what it is, and you can tell just by the element name. And this will also come in handy with styling later with CSS. That'll come soon. So this entire thing is what we're going to call a section. So I'm going to go ahead actually and start off our section tag right here and close it right here. Oh, I already closed. Cool. And just in the interest of organization, I'm going to go ahead and highlight all of this. And if you press tab, it tabs all of it, which is pretty handy. Oh, I forgot the H2. Thanks, Chris. So that looks a little bit cleaner now. So now we have this entire thing as one section element. Now if I save this and I go back, nothing changes, which is fine. That's what should be happening. The section tag doesn't change anything visually. It's just a way of indicating meaning to those elements. It makes our code more well organized, and it follows good coding practice for HTML. So this is our section. And one way of thinking about when to use a section is if you were to give like a table of contents of your website to somebody. Would this appear as like a chapter title in your table of contents? And I think it does. I think if I were to make a table of contents for this website right now, I think skills is a section to show as a chapter. So that's kind of one way of going about that. So sections is actually going to be the only semantic HTML element we'll cover for today. There are many more, and you might run into them as you explore and try out and learn more HTML, but that will be for more advanced topics in the future. So at this point, I'm going to give you some time to go ahead and make your own section. So right now we have a skill section, right? What else can we show in our section? Some things I can think of off the top of my head are maybe, employment experience, clubs you're involved at in school, songs you like listening to right now. It could really be anything. So I'm going to go ahead and give you some time to make another section for yourself and practice what we just did. And I will be making my own section while you guys are doing this. So if you guys need like some assistance, then you can look up the screen. And we will have various people, mentors around to help you out if you have any questions. So, so go ahead and do that. We'll give you a few minutes. I need water, man. I got water, don't worry. No worries.
Excellent. I like that shit.
All right.
How are those sections looking? Good sections. It's cool though. We're gonna make them real pretty in a second.
Think that was enough time?
Maybe ask them like what sections they made. Would anyone be willing to share a section that they made? Just, what is your section about? You can see Kevin made one. It's like projects that he did. This is a project that we did. He'll probably put this on his resume. He'll probably be really proud about it. Anybody want to volunteer? Yeah, sure. Yeah, what's your section?
You could rank the NBA players and then give like the metrics next to them to explain why.
Oh, okay. That's pretty complex, but that sounds really good. That's a great idea. NBA players, favorite NBA players section. I like that. I'd probably do like tennis players, but
Not enough to rank them.
I don't have to rank them then, but
Okay, I hope that was enough time for you guys to make your section. And I'll go back really quickly, and this is the section I made, the little project section. Talking about this project I did. And, alright, so this is where we're at right now. We have a nice little heading. We have a picture of ourselves. We have a little paragraph blurb. Have some links to personal profiles. And we have a few sections talking about stuff that is relevant to us, like skills, projects, favorite athletes, whatever you decide to put up there. Now, this is, at its core, our personal website. This is the HTML right here. So once you've gotten to this point, you basically have a personal website. The thing is, would you want to show this to people? And I don't know about you, but I don't think I would. It currently looks a little plain, not very stylish, not very modern. It looks a little old. So I'm gonna pass off to Chris, and he's gonna teach you how to make it look real good with CSS.
Thank you, Kevin. Hi. In case you forgot who I was, my name is Chris. The reason why I was sitting there is because I needed to provide Kevin with emotional support, but this other 25%, that's 75% of my job is to do that, but the other 25% is to help you out with this next part of the tutorial. So let's go ahead and do that. So as Kevin said, this is a website. So like, first off, congratulations. This is some really good stuff here. Nice job, Kevin.
Thanks, man.
But I wouldn't show this to my mom or anything. She'd probably put it on the refrigerator or something. This is something you put on a refrigerator, but we're not trying to put it on a refrigerator. We're trying to put it on the internet. So let's continue with this. Let's make it pretty. That's my job. All right. Yeah. We ready to go? Cause this tutorial only goes uphill from here. It picks up. So let's go ahead and get started. Yeah. So just let me look at this with my designer's eye. What if I wanted to bring out these headings a little bit, right? The skills and the projects I right? They're all it's all black, right? It's all black on a white background. We're gonna fix the background problem later, but all black. What if I wanted to make it red? Well, one thing that I can do is the H2 element that Kevin introduced you all to has what is called a style attribute, all right? And this is an attribute just like any of the other attributes that you all have written. So the syntax should be familiar. But if I wanted to make this red, all I have to do is I'll go to my H2 right here, this skills section that we have here, and I'll go ahead and add a style attribute. And inside this style attribute, I can type in what is called a declaration. And this is a CSS declaration. This is going to be the very first line of CSS that some of you will probably write. And what I'm going to do is a declaration consists of something called a property. In this case, I'll call it color, and then followed by a colon and a value, red in this case, followed by a semicolon. So that's all that's going to go into this this style attribute right here. So if I save this document and go here and refresh, we got a nice red skills over here. It just pops out. Yeah, cool, right? Do y'all have any questions about that? It looks nice already, doesn't it? So what if I wanted to do that for the projects as well? You know, I'm not sure what you all made with your sections, but if you don't already have one, go ahead and put an H2 in there just to, you know, because like I feel like every section should probably have a heading, and I can probably make this one red as well with the same thing, style equals, and then in double quotes, color, colon, red, semicolon. Save this document. Boom, we have a red project as well. Okay, now look, I mean, I have 2 sections on here, so it's like not a big deal for me, but at some point, you know, when you're making bigger websites, you're not gonna want to do it this way, right? Like you can only ever style one element at a time. Not only is that inefficient, but also, you know, sooner or later, you're gonna have a whole bunch of styles everywhere in your HTML document, and it's just not gonna look very clean. The code won't be very readable at all. So there's a way to fix this, right? So like, what if I just wanted to say, okay, this is it. Like every H2 element that I have in my HTML document, I want to have the color red. Well, what I can do instead is I can move these styles into a style tag. And this style tag is a new HTML element. And it actually goes inside this head element that Kevin introduced a long time ago. If you all will remember, that the head element is something in an HTML document that specifies various metadata information that the browser can use to properly render your web page. And the style tag, the style element is going to go inside the head element. So let's go ahead and first off, I'm gonna like delete these style attributes. Take that out of the H2. We don't need this one either. And I'm gonna go ahead and put that eventually inside this style element here. Yeah, a style element inside the head element. So inside the style element, how do I specify now that I want every single H2 element in my document to be red? What I'm going to do at this point is I'm going to introduce you to your very first CSS rule. A CSS rule, so this is you like writing full-fledged CSS at this point. CSS, by the way, stands for Cascading Style Sheets, and it is the language that you use to make your website look pretty. Essentially, that's all I can really say. So what is the syntax of a CSS rule? It begins with something called a selector. So a selector is basically something that you type in the very beginning that allows you to select a subset of the elements in your HTML document. What subset that is depends on, of course, what your selector is. So in this case, if I wanted to affect all H2s, I would just write H2. And after the H2, I'll put a space, and then I will insert a pair of curly braces. In case you're having trouble finding it, the curly brace is shift, and then right next to the P key is like that. That's a curly brace. So we have a selector followed by the curly braces. And inside the curly braces, I'm going to put exactly what I put inside the style attribute earlier. Color, I'll do blue. I'll change it to blue. And I'm going to save it. Does anyone have questions about this? So, you know, the small victories, right? Congratulations, you've just made your very first CSS rule. If we save this document and then go over here, like, yeah, we're blue. Yeah, and like we didn't have to, you know, write the style for every single H2 element, so saves you a little bit of typing in the long run as well. Pretty neat, right? And honestly, this is literally like this is all you like. This is CSS is literally just a whole bunch of these. It's just a whole bunch of CSS rules. So you have a selector, some curly braces, and then inside here you can have any number of various declarations. And a declaration is a property name followed by a value name. The property names, you can look those up on online documentation. It eventually comes fairly natural to you when you have styled with CSS for an extended period of time. So that's why I knew that color was a thing, for instance. But that's definitely something you can look up online as well. W3 Schools, I believe, is a great resource for that too. So, you know, this is great too. There's actually a good practice to do, and that is generally people want their HTML to be entirely separate from their CSS. And what I mean by that is they want it to be so separate that they want all of their CSS to be in a totally different file. And right now you can see that our CSS is inside the same file, index.html, as our HTML. So what we can do is we can go ahead and create a new file. So in Sublime, or if you have this left sidebar here, go ahead and right-click the top folder in your sidebar over here and just hit New File. And yeah, so we're going to expand our boundaries a little bit. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to push Control-S, Command-S to save this document, and I'll call it styles.css. CSS is, of course, the extension that denotes a CSS file. So it gives us, useful things inside our text editor like syntax highlighting. So styles CSS, all we have to do now is I'm going to go back to this index.html tag, and I'm just going to cut everything inside this style element that I had before. H2, color blue, all of that. It's all going in here. And let's adjust these indentations as well. So it looks kind of like this. In fact, just to show you that it still works, I'm going to go ahead and change this to green. Yeah, and at this point, our style element is totally empty, so we don't even need this. And if we save, at this point, you can save everything, save all your styles.css and everything, and you're going to find out that we're back to black. So it didn't really work the way that we intended to at the moment. There has to be a way for us to, just like how we reference the image, the LinkedIn JPEG that Kevin put down earlier, we have to be able to link our HTML document to some sort of external resource. And in order to do that, for style sheets in particular, you use an element that once again goes inside the head element. It's called link. Links to an external resource. That's basically what it is. What is this link? Well, a link has to have, it has to have two attributes. One attribute is that it has to have the REL attribute. And the REL attribute stands for relationship, and it tells the web browser what exactly is this resource that I'm getting. And in our case, it's a CSS file or a cascading style sheet. So the keyword for this is all one word, style sheet. So that is. And aside from that attribute, we also, of course, have to link to this file as well, this new file that we've created, styles.css. So that attribute is actually not href. I'm pretty sure it's, is it href? Yeah, it is href. Great. That's something we're familiar with. Okay, so href, just like in the anchor tag, the A tag, which stands for anchor, by the way. And inside the href, we can just go ahead and put down styles.css because it is at the same level, the same directory as our index.html. So there's no like nesting that we have to do like with the LinkedIn image. We didn't have to do that. Cool. So if we save this, we go back, we're green. That's like a really, I feel like it's like a really like dark green, like a subtle green. Like I can't like prove to you that it's even there. Is pink a better one? Yeah. Okay. Right? So it still works. So now everything that you do in your styles of CSS is now linked, inextricably linked to your HTML document. You can't change it anymore. So everything you do there, you'd best want it to be there because whatever you're going to declare in that CSS file is going to reflect onto your HTML document now. Does anyone have questions about this? This is a new thing, the link element. Yes. Great. Okay. Well, now that we have the groundwork set, let's just go ahead and start styling this website. Honestly, you all kind of saw the finished product, and I'm gonna work towards that. The very first thing that I want to note, that I want to point out, is like maybe all of this. This is kind of like one like big relevant section. Like we kind of want like the person to definitely see this, or like to get to put their attention on these like 4 elements here when they come down to our webpage for the first time. So I kind of want to center align that, right? And there's one way to do this. There's one way to center align this. One, really tedious way, as I said before, is there's a CSS property called text align, and what you can do is you can just add a style attribute. You don't have to do this, by the way. This is what I'm like. I don't want you all to do this. Is to add a style attribute like this inline, and just say, all right, text align is center. And boom, our H1 is centered. And we could technically do that for this element and these 3 elements. And it all, kind of go to the center. But, we're kind of lazy and we have a better way to do this. So what we're going to do is instead, I'm going to group these elements together, kind of like we did with a section. Except this doesn't really have any sort of semantic meaning, right? Like this isn't, this is more like a cover page. Like we don't really want, like this isn't like up here in a table of contents or whatever. And it's not really something like a machine or like a screen reader would really need to know, like that these elements are grouped together like this. So what we can do is use a non-semantic grouping element. And this is something that like web developers use like so often. It's the div element. This div is just a general grouping element. All right, so I'm going to open up this div element here at the very top of the body, and then I'm going to end it after all of these links that we had made before. And let me go ahead and properly indent all of this. So to indent all of these elements inside all at once, just highlight the lines and then press tab, and boom, it should look a little nicer. Yeah, so what I did basically right there was I made a new element called div, and I wrapped it, I nested everything from the first H1 all the way down to all these anchor tags that we had made before. Does anyone have questions about that? It looks kind of weird on mine because the text is so big, but like if I were to like size it down, you could see like it maybe like makes a little more sense, right? Like there's a div tag here, and then all the content, each line of content is on there. Is that too big? Yeah, whatever. This is perfect. Okay, so what are we going to do with this div? Well, I'm going to introduce a new attribute called ID. And the ID attribute is something that can be used in CSS to uniquely identify an HTML element. So in this case, I'm going to call this div element a landing, just like for landing page. You can call it whatever you want. I'm going to call it landing because it makes sense to me. So that means at some point, I want to uniquely style everything inside this landing page, or like this landing div generally. And how I'm going to do that is I'm going to go back to my styles.css and I'm going to make a new CSS rule. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to introduce a new type of selector, and that selector is the ID selector. So as I said, landing is the name of this div, so it uniquely identifies it inside the HTML document. And what I can do to pull that out on the CSS is I can use this pound sign, this hashtag landing, and open up the curly braces. And everything that I do inside this landing CSS rule is now going to affect only the HTML element that has an ID of landing. And to prove it to you, I'm going to go ahead and make a new CSS declaration called that uses the text align property, and the value that I'm going to give is center. So if we save this, yeah. Cool, great, yeah. So there's no like, oh man, there's so many left. There's nothing like seeing good CSS come together, because CSS can also be very frustrating. But this is one thing, hopefully, that makes sense to you all. Does anyone have any questions about this? I haven't lost anyone, right? We're good?
How did you ID the parts of the again, I missed that part.
Yeah, sure. So what I did is you have this H1 that Kevin made in the very beginning, right? And you have you have like the image, the paragraph, the anchor tags, and everything. What I did is basically I added a div element that wraps around it. So I added the opening tag before all of those elements that I just pointed out, and then I added the closing tag right after that. So in a way, it's nesting all of these elements inside the div element, if that makes sense. And to uniquely identify that div, I gave it an ID of landing.
Do you do the HTML first and then do CSS, or do you do like as the whole page goes down? Or is that just personal?
I mean, I feel like people have different preferences with it. I personally like to only do HTML until I'm certain I have the structure of the document ready, because it like helps me separate concerns, right? CSS is exclusively for like styling your HTML, your web page, right? Your HTML like has the content, so I feel like I need to make sure my content is straight before I start styling. That's generally what I would do. But people are different. Okay, All right. Well, let's just keep looking at this website. So I'm thinking as well, that this middle part is a little too far up on the page. I kind of want it to like slide down a little bit. I just feel like, having this middle section be more towards like more vertically centered in the way when you first get on the web page would make it look a little nicer. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to, once again, inside this landing div, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add some padding, some white space to the top of this element. And to do that, I'm going to add a new declaration, and it's going to have a property name of padding-top, and I'm going to give it a value of about 100 pixels. Yeah, that should be good. And if I save and refresh, we got slid down a little bit. So that's how you add white space to an HTML element, inside an HTML element. It's not the only way, though. In fact, we're about to introduce something else that could be very confusing, but we're going to stop here for now real quick. So yeah, just add a new declaration to your landing selector, your landing rule. Cool? Does everyone see what I see? Does anyone not? Okay, well, let's keep going then. One other thing, where the skills starts and all these other sections, pink is like not good enough. Pink is kind of, hold on, I'm sorry. I just want to be able to see it better. Okay, yeah, so our sections are a little bit too close to the top as well. I kind of want it slid down. I want more of the focus to be on this middle part, right? So I want there to be more space in between my landing and my other element, my section, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a little bit of margin to the bottom of my landing element, and I'm going to give it a value of maybe about 200 pixels. So as you can see, if I save and refresh, everything just got pushed down and looks great, really, in my opinion, my humble opinion. So yeah, padding and margin. You might be wondering what's the difference between the two, right? Like, I feel like padding to the bottom could also accomplish pretty much the same thing. And basically, I don't want to get too far into it, but essentially, there's this thing called the CSS box model. And what I'm referring to is, if I Google this really quickly, this one's pretty good. MDN is a great resource. So, all right, so basically, you have something here, right? Let's say that this is your element. Okay, every element has what? Has some content inside of it, right? Text of some sort, some paragraph tags. You can think like, just imagine that this is like our landing div. Every HTML element is a rectangle, all right? It could be a square sometimes, but it's always a rectangle, okay? Every HTML element is always a rectangle. And inside that rectangle, you have the content itself, and right after that, you have all of the padding. So padding affects spacing within the element itself. You have like the element container, and then you have padding, and then the actual content that you have inside of it. Outside of this element, well, okay, you can also have a border as well. We're not going to change the borders, but like there's a border to each one of these elements that like lets you highlight the rectangle in various ways. That's just some way that you need to think about, like when you think of like what the box model is. Every element also has a border. Aside from that, there are margins outside of the element that dictate the spacing between elements. So while padding dictates the spacing inside of an element, margin dictates the spacing between two or more elements. So to show that right here, I have these padding and the margin bottom rules. One thing you can do to examine the padding and the margin of an element, what you can do is go ahead, if you're on Chrome or something, or it doesn't really matter, I think every browser can do this, just like right click around your headshot, like right next to it, click inspect at the very bottom. And what you'll see right there that just highlighted, you'll see something come up on the side, by the way, probably. And what this is on the side is a debugging console. And this basically lets you look at or inspect the properties of your HTML elements or the JavaScript that you're running, a whole bunch of different things, just a tool that web browsers provide to let you debug the code that you've written for your website. And one thing that it does is it lets you see, this nested structure of your HTML document, right? So it's hard to see obviously on the TV, but you should be able to see basically roughly like what you had on your HTML file, right? You have two sections. And if you expand those sections, you'll see the H2 tag, the P tag, and all of that. One thing you can do, if you highlight over this landing div that we made, you'll see that it gets highlighted right here, right? And what you can see is the blue part is the content of our element. The entire thing is consists of the green and the blue. So the blue part is the content of the element. The green part is the padding that we added. And then the orange part is the margin that we have in between the landing and the section. And it tells you exactly how much of that it is, right? Like it says down here, content is this height and this width, padding is 100 on the top, and then margin you have on the bottom 200 pixels. So this is one way that you can do to look more deeply into your HTML elements when you style them. We're going to come back to this console later when we touch JavaScript, but are there any more basic questions about margin and padding? It's a somewhat subtle topic to talk about, but it's still something I feel like I should mention because I used both, so you deserve an explanation. Okay, well if not, then we'll just keep moving. With our newfound knowledge of spacing, let's go ahead and take a closer look at these sections. I want more spacing in between my sections as well, right? In between my individual sections. So what I'm going to do is in my CSS file, I'm going to add a new element selector called section, and I am simply going to add 50 pixels of top margin to each of them. So basically, what this is saying is every single section is going to have an additional 50 pixels of margin when I refresh the page. By the way, you may notice that even though this is a section, you didn't add any additional margin to the top of this, and it's kind of like a weird thing with margins. So vertical margins they combine with each other between elements. It's kind of just a weird topic, or just a weird quirk. But in case you're wondering why the skills section didn't also get pushed down 50 more pixels, it's because of that. It's because there's already 50 pixels worth of margin between the landing and the skills. But that's kind of a subtle detail. What's more important, however, is that as you can see now, our section elements have a little bit more spacing in between them when we added that 50 pixels of margin to the top. Cool? Okay, well let's keep going then. What else do we see? I see that these sections are kind of a little bit too far to the left. They're almost touching the edge of this web browser. That doesn't look very good. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and in each of my sections, I'll add a little bit of left padding to it, maybe 20 pixels, for instance. And it's shifted a little bit over. Padding dash left, that's what that is. Questions? No? Okay, well, come to think of it, this whole website's actually a little too wide. So what am I going to do about that? Well, what I'm going to do is at the very top of this styles thing, I'm going to declare essentially a document-wide style. I will select the body element, which as we know has everything that is rendered in the web browser in it. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to give it a max width of about 1,000 pixels. So that should constrain it to pretty much slightly one side of this. So if I look, I expect, oh, well, it doesn't really make sense because the sidebar collapses the width. But basically, as you can see, everything's kind of shifted to the left now because there's an invisible line here that's all right, we're at 1,000 pixels, great. So then the element ends right here. And since it's center aligned, then this thing is center aligned to a rectangle that stops at about right here. So now, our website is constrained to a max width of 1,000 pixels. Just like that. But that doesn't look quite right? Because everything is sort of to the left. I want everything to still be in the center. So one thing I can do, now we have this extra margin space here on the right that we didn't really ask for. I want to evenly distribute that margin on both sides of my entire body. So what I'm just going to do is I'm going to add a margin declaration, and I'll set it to auto. And that's what auto does. Auto takes whatever margin that you didn't really do anything with for a particular element, and it will evenly distribute it to both sides of the element. So now we're back in center, front and center. It's looking pretty good, actually. This is nice. This is really close. This is really close to what we want. Does anyone have questions about that? And if you're wondering how I knew that, it's just, I mean, you just Google stuff and like eventually you just, you know, it like becomes something that you can understand. CSS can still be very frustrating when you don't have the right selectors or something getting in the way. But it's acquired knowledge over time, yeah. Does anyone have questions? Should I stop, slow down? Well, I'm not going to stop, but should I slow down? I could stop if y'all want. We can end this. Okay. If not, then let's keep looking then. So, one other thing. These links here, they're like, I mean, they're like way too close together, right? So let's add some margin in between them. But here's the thing. I don't want to add margin to every single link that I have because like this looks fine right here. I don't want to add a margin to this link here. I just want to add a margin to these here. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my HTML, and this is how we use selectors. This is a more complex use of CSS selectors that we can use to, once again, target a specific subset of HTML elements in your document. That's what CSS is all about. And what we're going to do is there is this paragraph tag, right? This little blurb that Kevin made for us along with the anchors. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a new line like right underneath that image, right above the paragraph tag. And I'm going to add another div. And I'm going to give it an ID. I'm going to call it blurb. And we'll also end that right after the anchor tags. Kind of like that. And from this blurb, what do we have? Well, as you can see, this blurb has what we call 4 direct descendants. Okay? These are immediate children of this element. What are the immediate children, you're probably wondering? Well, the P tag is directly nested inside of it. This anchor tag, the LinkedIn anchor tag, is directly nested in it. This GitHub one and this Twitter tag. These 3 elements these 4 elements are all direct descendants of the blurb div. This anchor tag right here inside the paragraph tag, it's not a child. It is a child. It's not a direct descendant of the blurb. And that's going to be very important for us very soon. So how do I select only these anchor tags then, knowing what I've done here, that I've grouped them into this blurb div, right? How do I specify that I want to style only these anchor tags? What I'm going to do is I'm going to make a new CSS rule. We'll put it right at the very bottom here. And I'm going to, once again, use a selector we're all familiar with, the ID selector for a blurb, right? And after that, I'm going to use a greater than sign and then the element A. And that is going to be our total selector. What I'm using here is the child combinator. That's what this is called. It's a combinator. And what this does is it tells me, all right, take the HTML element that has the ID of blurb and get me all of the direct descendants of the blurb element that is an anchor element. So all of the directly descendant anchor elements of the blurb div. This is what this selector is saying. So once again, you can see that CSS can get fairly complex in terms of how exactly you can select the different elements you have. Yeah? So how are we going to do this? Well, all I'm going to do is just going to add a margin left, and we'll add 50 pixels of margin to the left and then 50 pixels of margin to the right. Save all of that. Go back to my index.html because it looks like I didn't save this either. Make sure you save both files. Once again, margin dash left 50px, margin dash right 50px. Go back, and we're spaced out. Okay? Enough with the spacing now. This is I think this is the last spacing thing we're gonna do. So, sorry if you like doing that. Okay, great. So, hey, you know, like this is pretty good now. Like slightly above refrigerator quality. So, like, one other thing is, you know, everybody has this font, right? You all have the same fonts. Let's change that. There's an easy way to change this. So one thing is, you know, there's a way to change the font of your document. One creative way that one way that I hope will let you all get creative with it is we're going to use an external resource to do this. Just as you can use the link element to refer to an external resource that is in your own project, like styles.css, you can also use the link element to refer to an external resource, just like how you could refer to some image that you found on the internet, right? You can use the link to do it the same way. So what some clever people have done is they've managed to encode various typefaces into CSS as like a rule. And they have made those style sheets available online for you to use however you really want. And the folks at Google actually have done this. And if you Google right now, go to Google and Google fonts and click on the very first link, you'll see there are a bunch of fonts here. And they all look pretty cool. And full disclosure, I do not know anything about typefaces. So like I don't know, like I can't tell you like why something looks good, so don't ask me. But like what I want you all to do now is just, you know, go through these fonts, see what you like, and if you like it, make sure basically that when you hover over them, there is this like drop down in the middle that says that it has different font weights, because we want one that has a light font. You can see that's regular over here, right? So if I like hover over one and the middle thing over here, if it says that it's light, then it's a good font that we can use for this purpose. There's one that I like, which I don't. Is it Mata? Mata. Yeah, I always use this one. I don't know why. It's fine. So after you found a font that you want, let's go ahead and click that plus sign in the top right, and you'll see that this new thing came up at the very bottom of the web page. One family selected. After you've found the font, let's not make this choice too, you know, how do I call it? Yeah, complicated. Just, you know, pick one. It's all good. I won't see it until the very end when I ask you to show me your website. But once we're done with that, you've selected the family, so go ahead and click on that so that it expands, right? This pane expands, so you have, you know, your selection, right? And go ahead and click customize and make sure you include that light font weight, because we're probably going to want that. Yeah? After we've done that, go back to the embed tab, and you can see that it tells you, can I zoom in, please? Let me zoom in. No, okay, all right. It tells me how to embed this font. And you can see under the standard thing, it has something that we are completely familiar with, right? Like this is just something we found online, but it's like something that we are already hopefully intimately familiar with, which is the link element. So all I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy this entire thing. I'm going to throw that in right after my title element. Just copy paste. It's like 25% of programming is copy pasting. So like the other 75% is knowing what to copy and paste. But so yeah, what do we have here? It's like, you know, href attribute. You've seen all this before. This is essentially pointing your web browser to an external resource that is hosted by Google. If you go here, you'll see it's just like a bunch of complex CSS that like adds a new rule that adds the typeface to it. We know it's a style sheet, okay? So we go ahead and copy paste all of that, and to use it, we can go ahead and go to the body selector of our styles.css file. I hope I haven't lost y'all yet. This is kind of a weird part. I'm sorry, but go back to your Google Fonts thing. And at the second part here, specify in CSS. This is literally just a CSS declaration like we're used to seeing. Copy that and throw it right inside the body, just like that. You can see the property name of this declaration is font family, and it uses the name of the font that you picked. It's called Mata. And this comma here, this extra argument at the very end here, I don't know if you call it an argument, whatever. It's saying that if the Mata font for whatever reason is not available, then just use the system default sans serif font. Okay, so just put that into your body, and then let's go back to this, refresh. Oh, sick. Cool. Yeah. Are we good with that? Did it work for any of y'all? I don't know, like, did it like not work for anyone? I went a little quick, I'm sorry. But come on, I need some feedback here. Does anybody see anything different?
It works.
It works. Thank you.
How do you make the font bigger? It's also small.
How do I make the font bigger? That's a great question. So I will make some of this font bigger. There is a font size property that you can examine in CSS to do that if you want to do that to the body. Let's test it right now, actually. If I do like larger. Boom. Larger font. Yeah. Does anyone else like, I don't know. Who else like got to this part? Anyone? Yeah. What font did you use? Mata? Nice. I like that one. Anyone else? See, this website's like kind of looking a little more personal. Yeah, what did you use? What? Comic Sans? Interesting choice. I've never heard of that one.
Up and coming fonts.
Okay, yeah. Great. So, if there are no further questions, let's move on. Wonderful that you talked about font size. So I'm going to do that because one thing, let's add a little bit more like I asked you all to import a lighter weight font because I want there to be some differentiation in these paragraph tags. Basically, I think this would look better in a lighter font. I don't know why. I just, my intuition kind of hits me, and I want it to be a little bigger as well. So what I'm going to do here is, first of all, let's say that I wanted, every single paragraph tag to have the that new font that I want. So let's go ahead and create a new selector, and I'll call it, we'll have the P selector, right, in our styles.css. What I'll do is there's a font size declaration, which I told you all before. We'll use something called 1.2 EM, and I will explain that very soon. But the font weight is also important. I want the font weight to be lighter as well. So if we save this, font size is 1.2 EM, right? Font weight's lighter. We have all of our paragraph tags look a little lighter and a little larger too. How large exactly, you might be wondering? Well, exactly 20% larger than it was before, because that's what this 1.2 thing is. So EM stands for essentially the font size of your parent element of the font size that is specified inside your parent element, and you're specifying it to be some proportion of that font size. So 1.2 would be 20% larger. You don't normally change the font size, I think, between elements. The system-wide default, I believe, is 16-point font. So this is 20% larger than whatever 16-point font was normally used for most elements. The paragraph tag, I think, starts out as 16-point font. I could be wrong on that. Don't quote me. But yeah, that's what we did. I don't want the paragraph tag to be, all that, though. I don't want it to be this big. Or, I do, but, what if I wanted... Okay, here's the thing. I want to introduce you all to a new concept, so just roll with me here. Let's say that I have this section here, and I want, I have these skills here, right? And this is, a thing that I'm good at. Here are some of my projects, whatever. What if I wanted, I want to differentiate it, so I don't want to use this lighter weight font for every single P tag that I have, just some of them. So let's say I had another paragraph tag here, let's say in my skills, I'm I am a lifelong learner. Or whatever. And then over here I say, I say something like, I'll add another paragraph tag and we'll say, I am a self-starter. Because I make my own projects. Yeah? So we have an extra paragraph here, okay? Let's say that I only wanted these little, quick, these takes to be the lighter weight, but then the other paragraph tags, I want them to just be normal. So what we can do here is, once again, a different selector, one that people use a lot. It's called class, okay? And what I'm going to do here with the class, I'm going to add that to this new paragraph tag that I made. And I'll call it lead. You can call it whatever you want. It's like ID as well, but I'll call it lead. So this is my leading statement, essentially, for each one of my sections. So I am a lifelong learner. I am a self-starter. Maybe I also want to add that to my blurb div as well. We'll add an extra attribute to that. So basically, add a new attribute called class and put it on the blurb div, and also put it on, you can put it on a paragraph tag inside your section. This is just to illustrate a point, but if you want, make a new paragraph tag that says something corny like this, and it'll look even better. So this doesn't do anything right now, by the way. Like if you save it and refresh, it doesn't do anything different. Actually, there's nothing here. It still has it. So let's say I only want to apply this extra font weight and these larger font sizes to the elements that have the lead class. So right here, if I go back to my styles.css, no longer do I want to apply this style to every paragraph element. I want to apply it only to those elements that have the lead class, right? So I'm going to use a new type of selector in CSS to specify a class in CSS. It's a period followed by the name of the class. So dot lead. Yeah? Makes sense? Boom. Yeah, so we save it and refresh. You'll see, first of all, that everything here has been weighted like that, even the anchor tags, because we put that on the blurb div. But also, we got a little bit of differentiation, right? Like this is just like the appetizer, and then this is like the good stuff, if you want to think of it like that for the section. So in a way, I don't know, it's personal preference, but I just wanted to show you all how the class worked. The class is one other way that you can do to differentiate, or to mark a specific, or to select a specific subset of elements in your HTML document. We're so close. In fact, there's one last thing left. I don't know if anybody knows what it is. You probably didn't get a good look at it at the website before, but it's one really. There's one thing left. Yeah, what do you think?
You put on a circular frame around the picture.
That's right. That's right. I sure did. Yeah, I made this profile pic, this avatar. This headshot circular. So how are we gonna do that? Well, I know how to do that. I don't know. Does anyone want to give it a shot? I don't know. Well, like okay. So like if I only wanted to select the image, what selector would I use for CSS? This is a really easy one. I think this might be too easy. If I only wanted to select my picture, what would I put inside here? Image. Thank you. I haven't told you all what how to actually circularize it. It's this property called border radius. It rounds out the corners, and if you want to make it a perfect circle, you do 50%. I don't know what the other percentage signs do. I've never ever done anything other than 50%. So
Rounded corners.
it's like rounded corners, yeah. But it's like not quite circular. But like how? Well, yeah, what happens if you go further than 50?
I have no idea.
Anyway, you say that we're circular. Wow.
On the journey.
That is just, I mean, think about how far you all came, by the way. Like, I'm going to host this on my GitHub really soon. So, just, relish in that fact. It's almost 9. Does anyone have questions about what I just did? Or like anything really at this point? Congrats. Like this is CSS for you. I know it's getting a little late, so depending on how people feel, I don't have to do the JavaScript part, the one where you can change the background color spontaneously by clicking on the profile picture. It's really sweet. But I would rather, I think it would be more valuable for you all to see your website on the internet. I can do both, but I don't know. I don't even know how I'm going to get a feel for this. Is there anybody here?
Really wants to learn JavaScript.
Who here wants to learn JavaScript? Does that seem like fun?
You can learn JavaScript in 2 weeks at the next Hack Night,
Oh, that's true.
where we focus just on JavaScript.
Oh, well,
Sounds like Lily wants to leave. No.
I want him to host it, but you can do it.
All right. We'll do some JavaScript. I prepared for it, so I'm going to do it, okay? Okay. Let's do some JavaScript. We never get to JavaScript either. Every time we do one of these, and we never get to JavaScript. Okay. So I'm going to do JavaScript. I'm sorry. I don't actually want to run a poll. I'm going to do JavaScript. Y'all can and whatever. Okay. But I don't know. But before I do the JavaScript thing, does anyone have questions about the CSS thing? I might have went kind of fast through that part. Like I don't know, like, is there any reason why yours doesn't look like mine? And if there is, then point it out to me and I will fix this.
How did you do the different spacing in the like center?
Over here. So what I did is, this is the more complex one. I surrounded my paragraph and anchor things with a blurb ID div. And then after that, I used a special CSS selector. I believe it's called a child selector. It uses the child combinator here, the greater than sign. And this basically tells me I want to select the element that has the ID of blurb and all of its direct descendants that are anchor elements. I want to have a margin left and a margin right of 50 pixels each. And that's how I made the spacing. Yes?
If you have two pictures and you only want to
If I have two pictures and I only want to circularize one of them, well, I want to circularize only my headshot, right? So what I can do is I can add an ID to image. This is what I was originally planning on doing. Add an ID attribute. We'll call it headshot. To the image tag, save it, and then change the image selector to just be hashtag headshot. And that should only affect that image. Yeah, did it work? Right, absolutely. Any other questions? All right, well, let's get into the JavaScript then.
Oh boy.
This is gonna be fun. All right, what is JavaScript? JavaScript, okay, unlike the other two languages, JavaScript is like a full-on, like, people do all kinds of things in JavaScript. It's a way for you to basically exhibit like dynamic behavior for your website in some way or another. And what I mean by that is you can run what are essentially lines of code that will exhibit some sort of behavior to your website. So like to illustrate this in the most basic possible way, there's actually no way for I don't really want to do anything to our website just yet, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring up that debugging console that I found earlier, or that I talked about earlier. So go ahead and right click on the page and click inspect, and then go to console. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go to, and I'm just going to type in. So this console allows you to write JavaScript, okay? JavaScript is a programming language, and this lets you write JavaScript right here in the browser, and the browser will interpret that, and it will run the JavaScript. So the first thing that I can do is I can simply do console.log, hello, and then in single, all right, you can't see this at all. How are we going to do this? Is there any way to make this bigger, dude? Oh. Yeah, like that. Console.log, hello. Oh, by the way, before I go on, of the people that are here who are not mentors, of the people who are like following along, raise your hand if you've taken EECS 111 or 110. Okay. How about EECS 211? Okay. I'm starting to think maybe this might not be that like useful because I don't know. I think a big JavaScript, there are a lot of syntactical elements to JavaScript that are far easier to understand when you've had experience with an imperative programming language like C++ or Python or something like that. So I'm starting to think that maybe it actually wouldn't be a good idea to do this. I don't really want to hold you all for that long. I'm actually, I swear, I'm nicer in person. So you know what? I really want to make sure that you all get your websites on GitHub, and I also respect your time. So let's go ahead and move on to the GitHub part. Yeah. I would be more than happy to talk afterwards about JavaScript. Okay. So come up to me if you want to. We can go through it. Anyway, we have our right, like everybody has their project, right? Okay. Before anything else, we're gonna host our website on GitHub. And GitHub is a website. You can basically think of it as a way for you to store your code in the cloud. to do this, actually, people like professional developers interact with GitHub with an application called Git. We're not going to learn Git because that's like a whole other Hack Night worth of content, but we can still use GitHub to host our website. And when I say host, I'm saying we're uploading our files to some computer somewhere else, and that computer is going to give us the files whenever we navigate to its URL. Okay, that's what I mean by host. So, ow. I don't know what I just did. So, basically, before we do that, there's like I don't know why, I just, remember that time that you all like put the LinkedIn photo or whatever, your like photos inside the image thing? I need you all to take that out. I need you all to take this photo and I want you all to move it back into the top level directory. I know that this doesn't really make sense, but we tried to do this thing that we're going to do with GitHub, and for whatever reason, it doesn't recognize folders when we upload it directly, so we need everything to be in the root directory. I don't know why it's a thing, it just is, and I really want your photos to show up, and I don't want this to be hard, so. Okay, so what I want you to do, you know, if you followed along with Kevin, there's an image folder here. It works? Right, yeah, but like we're like doing like the upload files button, and I'm pretty sure it like won't recognize the folder structure. No, we're not doing command line. What does that mean? Okay, look, just listen to me. Okay. Okay, take your photo and just move it into the same thing, and then you can trash your image folder, okay? I'm sorry. I'm sorry if you like that folder. I really am. And to make sure that nothing broke, make sure for any images you had in there, remove the image prefix from your image tags. Like for this one, it used to be image / just take it out and refresh your web page to make sure everything still works. Okay, now, after that, go to github.com. Oh, I'm already logged into my account.
Oh, all right. Oh, what the? You didn't log on last time.
Nice. Okay. Yeah, so everybody has a GitHub account? Everybody logged into the GitHub account? Yeah, right? Okay, cool. Okay, so we're going to make a repository, and what a repository is essentially like, you can think of it like a folder that holds all of your project files. We'll just leave it at that. And click on this green button here. It says new repository, and I bet you can figure out what it does. So when you get here, the repository name, what you're going to do here is you're going to take your GitHub username. Hopefully you didn't pick anything too embarrassing. And what you're going to do is you're going to make it be your GitHub username .github.io. Yeah. Keep it public, and go ahead and also check this box right here that says initialize this repo with a README. We need to do that so we can access this particular button that I like called upload files. And without it, we'd have to use Git, and I don't want to use Git. So make sure you check that box. Okay? Questions? We good? Yeah, excellent. Okay. So go ahead and click Create Repository when you're done with that. All right, so we should see something here. What you're seeing right now is the list of files that you have in your repository. When we click that check mark, you should see a file called readme.md. Don't worry about that. It doesn't mean anything to us, really. So at this point, there's a button here called Upload Files. Okay? Click on that. And then click on Choose Your Files. And when you're here, go navigate to your folder where you had everything and select each one of your files. So first, the index.html, you can do that. Your headshot as well. You can also select multiple of them at a time by holding Control or Command, I believe. Just select all of them. Okay, index.html, LinkedIn, JPEG, and styles.css. Cool. Questions so far? Did we lose anyone? No, we didn't, it looks like. Okay, cool. So at the bottom here, you don't have to worry about any of this for now. We're not talking about Git. We don't care about Git. Just hit the button, commit changes, and let it do its thing. So by the end of the day, you should see that you have whatever your new files are. Does everyone see that? Does anyone not see that? Okay, great. We're almost at the finish line. Click on Settings. In fact, I don't even think you need to do this. I just need to make sure that it sees it. Go to Settings at the top here, this tab here. Scroll down, and it says your site is ready to be published. It should say this. Your site is ready to be published at https yourusername.github.io. Click on that. Give it some time. And boom, we're on the internet. Does anyone not see that? Who got it? What's your username? Spell it for me. M-A-Y-A-N-K? M-A-T-H-U-R? 2802?
Nice. Oh, look, it's the round.
Oh, it's the rounded corners, the fabled rounded corners. Nice. I like the way this looks. Good pick. I don't know what happened here. Whatever. Yeah, no, I got you. I got you. Does anybody else have a website they want to show off? Any of your all's work? Yeah, oh, your point. Okay, we're going to both. What's yours? What's your username? Yours doesn't work? What's yours? Like that?
L-E-E.
Christopher H. Lee?
Yeah.
Wow. Oh, so... I'm refreshed. Quora. Nice.
What font is this?
This is
Ubuntu.
this is Cantrell.
It's nice. Good font.
Great font choice. Anybody else want to show their website? Yeah, what's yours? Give me your username. How do you spell that last part? V-U-U? Oh, V-U-U. Like this?
Oh, no. No.
Oh my goodness. Oh, okay. I was like, let's cut the live stream first. That's funny. I like that.
Oh, that's a lot of skills.
The oh yeah, I forgot to mention the border radius thing. Yeah, it's only a perfect circle if your image was a square. I don't know why I missed that. Interesting. The font. Okay. Anybody else want to show theirs off? See, it's yeah, it's like it's on the internet now. Isn't that cool? Yeah. What's yours? Oh, cool. Oh, that watermark though. Yeah, no, I bet you. You know, they got like machine learning that takes that away now. Apparently, isn't that crazy? Yeah, you could just de-watermark things. It's like, why even bother? I like that. Oh, I like these little pipes here. That's cool. Oh, so you just like decided to do that instead of the margins, right? Hey, you know that's what websites are all about. I like the color too. Really good. Great choice. Do any of y'all have a website you want to show off? Anything? You don't have to. Doesn't matter. Okay, well, yeah, hey, awesome. I mean, look at all these sites. They're really good. You can keep them up now if you want. I mean, you don't have to either, but just, I mean, it's cool. It's cool, right? Well, yeah, if there are no further questions, I'll be around for a little while longer, especially if anyone wants to talk about JavaScript. But Besides that, wow, thank you all so much for sticking here together through it all. It's been almost 2 hours, clocked out at around what, like a little over an hour and a half. So, yeah, thank you all so much. That's it.